particular series will be focused on the pyramids. One thing that archaeologists all agree on is they really don't know who built the pyramids, how the pyramids came into being, and what their purpose really was. And so what we're finding is the pyramids were actually before the days of the flood. There's obvious water damage that has been found on the pyramids, as well as the Sphinx and other pyramids throughout the world as well. And they really didn't think that mankind had the technology to lift 50 megaton boulders of rock, whether it be by crane or by their pushing or pulling motions. But what they're finding is these pyramids were not only so cut, so fine and centered that you couldn't even put a credit card through some of them, but they're finding that the precision was so mathematically correct that it would almost be impossible to build the pyramids that precise from the bottom to the top. And so they've been baffled for millennia because of that answers to those questions. And so what we're finding now is that there was another type of technology. In fact, we're learning a lot about the world. And what keeps the world round is there's 12 spokes going longitude and there's 12 spokes going latitude. And these spokes were energy grids, ley lines, whatever you want to call them. But these are grids that keep the Earth intact and at a certain shape, a certain form. And they found the significance of the cross was when these grids cross over each other, the longitude and the latitude, and that's what we would call a vortex. And so they would build pyramids right on the vortexes of these ley lines, these energy grids, and that's where the Earth would literally have their form of communication. The pyramids were actually built as types of computer centers, where they would give information to our Creator of exactly the evolution of the Earth and what state it's in at the time. And so the pyramids were not only informational gathering centers, but they were also centers of transport. The one thing the archaeologists were baffled is when they did excavations on the people that were in the pyramid vicinities at the time, they found that they didn't pack any of their clothes. They didn't, take out even the bread out of their ovens. So they just vanished like the wind. Somehow they just, took off into another area. They don't know what happened. Same with the Mayans and the pyramids down there. They don't know what happened to the original people that were that had the technology at the time with the pyramids. And so what we found through different experiences and different scriptures is whole civilizations were translated. These were places at one time, and they even called them the Pillars of Enoch. If you're familiar with the ancient prophet that somehow his city was taken off the earth. Now, there was a technology given even, before the Dark Ages. Man knew that the earth was round. They were masters of astronomy. Even the temples of ancient, South America were so precise that our atomic clocks are within, megaseconds of the precisity of it. And so, the pyramids were designed as not only informational, but as the stargates, places to translate. There's been experiences of people in shamanal ceremonies on vision quest that literally went through the pyramids in their spirit and would go into a city of light, a city where there was nothing but immense happiness, brightness. The glories there were incredibly just intriguing, and they just all recognized that that was the doorway to another world. And so what's interesting is there's many pyramids that have been covered up throughout the world. Pyramids all around the earth that mountains have, through accumulation of wind or dust or storms, that have been covered up. And so a lot of our mountains could be pyramids. And if you realize, pyramids were built in places where there wasn't many mountains. They were necessary for their shape to literally, conduct the most energy into a focal point. Because it's like a magnifying glass. If you get it to that one beam, that one focal point, to the apex, if you will, you have an immense amount of energy. That if that energy was focused in the right area. Now, one thing, again, the pyramids all have in common is the literal relation to Orion. The Orion's belt, they were built, the three were exactly with the Orion's belt. And so we think that that possibly could be the map to the center of the creations of God, as they talk about our star as a bigger to a planet to a bigger, our solar system is a star to a bigger and more powerful galaxy that is in turn a star to a bigger, more powerful galaxy. And at the center of all creation, again, we have that planet that's so immense that it is comparable to 1,000 of our years to equal just one of its days to rotate. And so that's the center command of all creation. So everything revolves around God, literally. And so the pyramids are just the way that God communicates with his creations. Man, even now with his technology, cannot build one of these pyramids. We don't have a crane that can lift these 50 megaton boulders one on top of another, and the precisity is incredible. And so we get back to some of the original origins of how they were possibly created. According to J.J. Hurtak in the book of knowledge of the keys of Enoch, he gives a really fascinating scenario of how it could have happened. The Star of David is one pyramid going up and another one going down. And so because they were built on the vortexes of the earth, they created a extra amount of energy that could possibly have contributed to the anti-gravity. And so his idea, and I tend to agree, is they were built from the top to the bottom. They had the ability to, if you have opposition in all things, you have gravity. So an opposite of gravity would be anti-gravity. And so their ability was to shape the pyramid from above, and just like filling up a funnel, gives it such preciseness that baffles mankind to this day. And so, these pyramids, once we understand them, once we get into the true nature of the purpose behind them, it's also symbolic to the creation. You have the center of all creations, or at least the building block is the atoms. Now the center of the atom is your nucleus, the eye in the middle of the pyramid, with your electrons, protons, and neutrons. Now this is a picture of a piece of platinum metal under a high amount of, under an atomic microscope. Now what we see in this picture is a universe of triangles. It's a universe of pyramidal shapes that literally represent the building blocks of life. And so when we look at all things on a molecular atomic level, we will see thousands and billions and trillions of pyramids that literally is the building blocks of our life. And so everything rotates, just as Nikola Tesla attested that the alternating current alternates in a third pyramidal triangular rotation. And so that gives us our literal building blocks of life. And so the fascinating thing about this is we have learned through study of these atoms that scientists try to find a pattern of how these atoms work. And they realized that by studying these molecules, it was altering the results of their tests. It was making it to where these atoms were acting as though they were being watched. And so they would think in their mind, okay, move right. And these atoms would move right. And then they would think move left. And then they would move left. And they found that just by their own thoughts, they could literally manipulate these atoms to doing what they were thinking. And so they thought, well, what does that mean to us? Let's step back another level, and what does that mean to us? And they realized that everything we think. Now, just to give you an idea of how powerful our thoughts are, if you was to look at the NFL during winter as they're playing hard on the field, they take off their helmet, and what do you see coming from their head? All this steam, all this energy of our own bodies just putting this out. And think of that also as our thoughts just going out into the universe, because it has proven that our body, our mind actually, puts out that energy. Now, I was watching on PBS one day about this man who had two cables hooked up to each part of his temples. And through his own thoughts and through his own energy, he was running this electric train around a course and using the power of his mind. And so our minds are very powerful. If you think about it, just one thought that man mind can actually power a train around a track. It tells us the power of our thoughts. So again, we were talking about just the power of one thought. It actually took a thought to split the atom, to create nuclear power, whether it be a bomb or for electricity. And so, you know, they realized that our thoughts are incredibly powerful, and it affects all the atoms around us. And then they would notice some of these atoms would literally split in half for some reason. And they thought, why would they just cut in half, and why would they do that? And they realized that every time somebody makes a decision, every time somebody makes a choice in life, an atom will split. And so that will give us the literal timeline of two different worlds. So we can see what world we could have lived in had we made a different choice, and we can also see the world that we are living in. And so that's incredible information that they found out. And so apparently it ripples, all this thought that we think, it ripples out into the universe to all these atoms and to everyone else's atoms, and it's just a big boiling pot of everyone's rippling, touching everyone else. And then it gets filtered through the Lord God of heaven. He is the expression of all this energy. He is the one that is the mind in control of all things. If you have two minds in control, you'd have chaos. So we just need that one mind. So, you know, whatever he does through his own universe and program, he filters our thoughts and then he brings them back down to us. And these thoughts will come back down to us in the form of what we call coincidence. Sometimes you'll think of a person you haven't seen in a while, and they will all of a sudden show up in the next couple of days. You haven't seen, or you want to do a certain idea, a certain path you want to lead. Next thing you know, next couple of days, you'll have a coincidence saying, well, talk to this guy. He's doing exactly what you were just talking about. And so all these coincidences throughout history, they called it karma. They called it, happenstance. They just didn't realize how powerful our thoughts really were. And so this is why throughout the ages, they've wanted to get us as children to indoctrinate us the way they want us to think, and give us a nice little square hat afterwards, so that we are now blockheads in their new world of, money. College these days just teaches us how to get a good job and how to, be a productive member and responsible member of society, instead of learning the true knowledge of how the universe works. I mean, Jesus, for example, he took a lot of his messages and a lot of his stories by just looking down. And we're going to get to that on part 2. So we'll see you there.